Hello, my name is Chris. I am Information Services Librarian for Middlesex County Library. While I do not work for Service Canada, I have been assisting library patrons do the online employment insurance application since about 2011. We will be going through a few things in this video. Primarily, we'll go through question by question, and I will give you a little bit more information about what's being asked. And hopefully this will make doing the online application a little bit simpler. So here you can see that I am on the Service Canada webpage. Up top here you can see the URL. So just double check that you're on the right page, and next I'm going to click on English. The Service Canada website, it's set up the following way. They would like you to read as much as possible so that you understand what's going to be asked of you, and you can prepare for the questions. So let's scroll down and let's find where on the page the Service Canada's EIAplication Form is located. Let's keep scrolling down. And just right here you can see employment insurance benefits. We're going to click on this link right here. On this page here, you can see, as you scroll down, the types of benefits that are available through the employment insurance. So there's regular benefits, there's sickness benefits. So regular benefits is if you have lost your job through no fault of your own, and sickness benefits if you're unable to work due to illness, injury, or quarantine. There are a few other benefits available, but I'm going to click regular benefits. We'll scroll down on this page. So starting with 1 and going through until number 7 here, they would like you to read it. It provides a lot of information about what's going to be asked of you, the types of questions they're going to ask, the type of information that you should have on hand. But if you're looking for the application form, simply click on number 5, apply. And we'll scroll down on this page here. It is suggested that you read through. If you have time, I really think it's worth it for you to read through each of the pages from 1 to 7. But if you're ready to start the application, this blue button on the left-hand side here that says ready to start, we're going to click that. And we're going to scroll down on this page here. Some more information that you should read through. And on the left-hand side, if you're ready to apply, you will click the blue button, Start Application. And I'm going to scroll down here. Okay, so this is the very first page of the EIAplication Form. So I'm going to go through this, and I will say, don't necessarily copy the steps that the way that I answer the questions. You really need to make sure that you are answering the questions based on your circumstances and that it makes sense for your personal situation. I might answer it a certain way just so that I can show you the application form. The other thing I'm going to mention right off the top here is the red asterisk questions. So answers to fields in questions with red asterisks are mandatory. So sometimes that comes up where it's a red asterisk and it has to be answered. Other times you can simply leave fields in questions and you can leave that answer blank. All right, very first question here. Are you trying to retrieve an application that you began within the last 72 hours but did not complete? Yes or no? So if you had already started filling out an application form that you had not fully completed, and you had written down your temporary password, you could answer this question yes, and as long as it hadn't been more than 72 hours, you'd be able to retrieve your application using that temporary password. If you were simply using this the first time and it was a brand new application for EI, you would simply answer this question, no, you're not trying to retrieve an application, you're starting a brand new one. So let's answer that no, and we'll click on continue. On this page, it is asking you the following. What type of employment insurance benefits would you like to claim? So there's two types. Benefits for employees is the most common one. That's a situation when you are working for an employer, and as an employee you've opted into the employment insurance EI benefits. The other option is if you're self-employed. So if you own your own business or you're self-employed and you voluntarily register and you make payments to the EI program, the employment insurance program, that's the second option. So for most people, they work for someone else, they work for an employer, so it would be the first one, benefits for employees. Of course, if you're self-employed and you opted into the EI program, it would be the second one. So I'm going to click on continue. On this next page, reference code. So it's asking, are you part of a group of employees in an apprenticeship program or a work sharing program or a group layoff situation, or if you're in the automotive industry and you were given a reference code by your employer. So this is not common in all situations. Sometimes if there is a large group layoff situation, an employer will register with Service Canada and they will be provided a reference code that they would share with their employees. It's something that you should ask your employer if that's something that they have registered with. What the reference code does, it slightly shortens the application form for EI benefits, slightly, ever so slightly. So if you're given a reference code, you could certainly put it in at this point by answering yes. If you weren't given a reference code, that's okay. You can simply click on no and we'll click on continue. On this page, it's asking what type of benefits are you applying for. So you can see listed below several types of benefits. Regular benefits is if you lost your job through no fault of your own and you're available for and able to work but can't find a job. And the other one that I'm going to point out, sickness benefits, you're unable to work due to illness, injury, or quarantine. This option allows you to receive sickness benefits prior to maternity benefits. So those are two that might be applicable right now, but have a look through and see which type of benefits, EI benefits, might be applicable to yourself. I'm going to select the first one, regular benefits, and we'll click on continue. On this page, it has some information that you should read through. It goes through what's going to be asked for the next couple of questions. So I would recommend that you read through and have a look at what's going to be asked on the next couple of pages. I will point out this 1-800 number here. It is specifically the employment insurance 1-800 number, 1-800-206-7218. So if you did have any questions or concerns, or if there's any issue with your EI application or receiving benefits, this 1-800 toll-free number here is the number that you could call and speak to someone, a Service Canada agent in a call center, and they would be able to help you out. It's likely a very busy number right now. It often year-round is. So it is often suggested that you call early in the morning. I think they start answering the phones at 8:30 local time in the morning, 8:30 a.m. But that would be a way to get a hold of someone from Service Canada if you had any issues. I'm going to click on continue. Okay, so on this page here, I'm going to be entering some information about myself. Things such as social insurance number, date of birth, last name that's on your social insurance number card, the first name that's on your social insurance number card. This one here, other given name or middle name, is not a required. It doesn't have a red asterisk, so if If your middle name is not on your social insurance number card, or you don't have a middle name, you can just leave that one blank. Last name at birth, your gender, and finally your mother's maiden name. So I'm going to enter this information and I'm going to click on continue. You'll notice that I went ahead one page. So the page that I went ahead on is called the identity validation page. And what you did on that page was simply double check that you put all the information in correctly. There was no spelling mistakes, things such as your first and last name, your social insurance number. You should double check that. So I just simply clicked on continue, and now I'm on this page called temporary password. So I would suggest you write down your temporary password. It can be helpful if you ever had to exit out of this online application. If you remember your temporary password, you could retrieve your application. You'd have up to 72 hours to using your temporary password. And if you put in on the previous page the information that was being asked, your social insurance number, your mother's maiden name, things like that, if you have that in addition to your temporary password, you'd be able to retrieve, you'd have 72 hours to retrieve your password. I will say that you will have to put in the information exactly as you did the first time. So if you capitalized your first and last name, you have to put it in exactly as you did the first time. So I'm going to click on continue. I wrote down my temporary password just in case. Okay, we are on this page here, and it is asking the following two questions. How you'd like to receive service in. I'm going to click English for speaking, English for writing, and then we're going to keep moving down here. In this section here, is asking you if you would like to put your email address, your area code and telephone number, your cell phone number, if you feel comfortable with sharing this with Service Canada. You'll notice that these are not red asterisk questions, so they're optional. We'll keep moving down here. Telephone number for messages, or TTY/TDD number. That's a special technology for hearing impaired people. So if this is applicable, by all means put that in this box here. There is a field for a telephone extension if you have one. And then moving right along here, we're moving into the section that is mailing address. Enter your postal code and then select the retrieve address button to display your mailing address. So NG288, and then I'm going to click retrieve address once you have that. The other thing to mention is postal codes are letter number. Make sure you have that in the right order. The other thing is in some communities we might say NOL when really it's N0L, so make sure you put it in that correct format. And next I'm going to click retrieve address. So what it tries to do is generate based on your postal code where you live, so it might automatically populate some of these fields. So here it did. It had everything except the house number, which I'm going to put one in. If your address doesn't automatically populate, you might have to put in the information. So that might be if it's a newer house, or if it doesn't know exactly where you live, so it might not be this simple. You might have to put in some more information, but that's okay. This last question below here is asking, is your residential address different than your mailing address? So if it is, if your residential address is different than how you would address an envelope if you were going to mail something to yourself, you would select yes. If your residential address is the exact same as your mailing address, you would simply select no, and we'll click on continue. Programs and services. On this page, you'll notice here that it's not a red asterisk question. here you'll see that completion of this section is voluntary. So if you identify with any of these groups, you certainly can check off and indicate so. If you don't identify or don't want to, you can simply leave this blank and click on continue. Income tax information. Here it is asking how you would like to receive your T4E. So just like any other income, employment insurance is also taxed, and there's a tax document that you would likely need for when you do your income tax called your T4E. And this question here is asking how you'd like to receive it. So the first answer is I would access it online through My Service Canada account. That's what MSCA means. And not receive it by mail. So if you select this first one, Service Canada will not mail you this T4E document. Or the second option is please send me a paper copy, and it's mailed by February 28th. I'll also point out here that it has this little blue icon here that has an eye in the center, and it's help for this question. So you get some additional information if you click on this little eye icon. I'm going to select please send me a paper copy. And we'll move down. Personal tax credit. So the amount of tax deducted from your EI depends on your province and also your personal tax situation. So please indicate your personal tax situation, basic or basic and spouse. And basic and spouse is if you declare your spouse as a dependent on your income tax return. This is a question that you need to decide on your own what your personal situation is. So if you declare a spouse as a dependent, often that means that this spouse is not working and you are covering all of the expenses of this spouse, and basic means that you don't have this, you're not supporting a spouse as a dependent, or you might not even have a dependent or a spouse. It would just be basic. So I'm going to select that one, but make sure that you read through and you select the correct one given your situation. And I'm going to click on continue. This question here is asking how you would like to receive payment. So the question below reads, have you used direct deposit on a previous claim for employment insurance benefits? So if you have, simply select yes, or if you haven't before, or you're not sure if you have in the past set up direct deposit, select no. And now this pops up a new question about banking information. So the first answer is I have my banking information with me. The other one, I do not have my banking information with me, but will be providing this information at a later time. And the last one is I cannot use direct deposit. So I will say this one here, I cannot use direct deposit, is the way that you can still receive service from Service Canada a check in the mail. So if you select I cannot use direct deposit, they will mail you a check as payment. You don't have to indicate a reason. There's no red asterisk. But if you do have direct deposit, it is the simplest and easiest way to receive payment. You don't have to wait to receive a check in the mail. So if that's the case, you would select the first one. I have my banking information with me. And on the next page, you would simply fill in the information, your bank's transit number. You select the financial institution. They're listed here. And your account number. And there's a few other things. Now, your account number is not the same number as what's on your debit card or your client card. it would be a different number. If you have online banking, you can log in and you can find this direct deposit information, or you can also get this information from a blank check if you still have checks. This picture here shows you how to get that information from a check. And you would simply fill that in and then click on continue. We're back here. This page is asking, indicate your highest completed level of education. So let's have a look here. So these are our options: primary, secondary, apprenticeship, college, university, other. So it is highest completed. So if you didn't complete high school, theoretically it should be primary elementary because you didn't get to grade 12 or 13. But you would just indicate your highest level that you've completed. And there's another question below. Are you a member of a union or professional association? Yes or no. So if you're a union member, you would select yes. And then there's an additional question about what is your union that you belong to. If you don't belong to a union, you would simply answer no and click on continue. On this page here, we are being asked the business name of your most recent employer. Now, as I mentioned previously, these help icons here might be your friend to give you some more information about what's being asked. But simply you would put in the name of the most recent employer. The next question below is asking if you have an area code and telephone number. It is not one of the red asterisk questions, so if you don't have the area code and telephone number, you can leave that one blank. The subsequent question below, the first day worked at this job, you would fill that in. Again, it's not a red asterisk. Some of these questions, Service Canada will get this information from your record of employment. The most important question being asked is your last day worked. I would suggest using this handy calendar here, especially if your last day worked is relatively recent, because it helps you put the date in the format that Service Canada wants, which you can see here. So let's say the 20th was the last day that I worked, and there's one other question below. Will you be returning to work with this employer? Yes, no, or unknown. If you put on yes, another question populates below. Do you know the date of your return? Yes or no. So if you know the date that you're going to be back, you can say yes. If you don't know, if it's unknown at this time when you might be called back to work, you would select no, and then continue. The next question, reason for separation, and the question is the following: why are you no longer working? So listed below, there are several answers, so have a read through and see which one is the best answer for the situation you're in. The first one says there's a shortage of work, includes closure due to COVID-19, layoff, end of contract or season, and office closure. And there are many other ones. Another one that I'm going to point out, I'm on sick leave, includes illness, injury, quarantine, surgery, recovery, and medical leave of absence. But have a look through. Select the one that meets the situation that you're currently in. I'm going to select this one here. There was a shortage of work. And I'm going to click on continue. Rate of pay. You'll notice that this is not a red asterisk question, so it's not required. So if you want, you can put in your hourly rate of pay per hour or per year and click on continue. But if you don't want to put this information in, it's not required, you can simply click on continue. Job title information. So here in this search field here, they would like you to enter your job title. And then after you type in your job title, they want you to select it from a list. So I am going to put in library and then click on search job titles. And from this long list here, you would select the one that's closest to what your occupation is. Up here, you'll see it says if you do not find the exact match, select the one that most closely matches your occupation. So I put in library, and you would have a look through and see which one you think is the closest to what you did. If you don't work in a library, I would put in whatever occupation that you worked as. Some won't have the exact job that you did, so search terms such as laborer might be your friend. Let's try putting in laborer, and then you can see these more generic occupations. If you were a laborer of some kind, you can have a look through and select the one that is closest to what you did. Just for this example, I'm going to click cemetery laborer, and I'm going to scroll down and click on continue. ROE information about your last employer. ROE is record of employment. So from this list, it is asking whether or not you've received your record of employment, or if your record of employment has been electronically submitted to Service Canada by your employer. So have a look through and see if your record of employment, if your employer has issued you a paper copy, a carbon paper copy. It would be the first one here. I have a paper copy of your record of employment. Or if your employer has electronically submitted your record of employment to Service Canada, it would still be this one. So I have a paper record of employment and will submit it, or have submitted it to Service Canada, or my employer submitted the record of employment electronically. So they kind of combine things in that first one. If you have a paper copy, or if your employer has submitted it to Service Canada. So if your employer has given you a carbon copy, paper copy of your record of employment, it will be your responsibility as an employee to submit that to Service Canada. So there, in this time, in this day and age, I would suspect you would be mailing it in to Service Canada. But it is your responsibility if you do have a paper copy. If your employer has electronically submitted it, you don't have to worry. You would simply select this first one here and then click on continue. This question is asking, have you worked anywhere else within the past 52 weeks? Did you have any other periods of work with the same employer or other employers? So if you do still work for someone else, if you have a part-time job, you would have to indicate that. You would just simply say yes, and then it's going to ask you again, who did you work for? When was your first day of work? When was your last day of work? Things like that. So I'm going to select this as no, I didn't work anywhere else. But if you did or do currently have another job, put that information in. And you can see this message below that, once again, Service Canada is saying if you have any paper records of employment you received from employers in the last 52 weeks, this extra information helps determine your eligibility for EI. This question here is asking, did you work in Quebec or contributed to the Quebec Parental Insurance Plan benefits? Yes or no? I'm going to answer that question as no, and click on continue. Have you received or will you receive money through workers' compensation? If you have, you would answer yes, and you would answer the subsequent questions. If you have not received money through workers' compensation, you would answer no, and click on continue. This page is asking about pensions. Are you now, or will you be receiving a pension within the next 52 weeks? Let's say yes, so we can see what questions will pop up. So if you do currently receive any sort of pension, either through the Canada Pension Plan or Old Age Security or any sort of pension, including a private pension fund. You know, if you worked at Fort Talbotville or received a Ford pension, you would have to indicate that. But so you would select the ones that you currently or within the next 52 weeks will be collecting, and then you would click on continue. But for this example, I'm just going to answer this question as no, I will not be receiving a pension, and click on continue. On this page, business relationship information questions. The first question here, are you related to any owner or part owner of a business for which you worked, or to a shareholder who participated in running the business? Yes or no? I'm going to answer this one no, but of course, if your work situation is that you are related, you would answer this one, of course, yes. And here you can see who Service Canada, who they classify who your family is. And in the question further below, shareholder in a corporation for which you worked, did you own more than 40% of the shares of any corporation for which you worked? Yes or no? I'm going to answer that one no. And one more question below. Sole owner or partner in a business for which you worked. Were you the sole owner or partner or part owner in any business for which you worked? Yes or no? And I'm going to click on continue. The next set of questions is called variable best weeks. It's a little bit tricky, so we'll go through this a little bit slower here, and we'll read through to see what's being asked of us. So just a little backgrounder. Employment insurance is based, how much you're going to receive in the benefit is based on your best top grossing weeks. So if you're in a part-time job situation, or if there are times throughout the year that you work overtime, or if there's weeks that you make more money, this might be advantageous to you to tell Service Canada when your top grossing weeks were, in order for that to be considered in your benefit rate. I'll point out here that the way Service Canada does the weeks, your work week, is from Sunday to Saturday, which may not coincide with the way that your work does it. Your work might do it, Monday to Sunday, or kind of a Thursday to Thursday situation. So you might have to take that into consideration, because Service Canada will want your weeks from Sunday to Saturday. So let's find down here where the required question, in the last year, did you work less than 22 weeks? Yes or no? I'm going to answer that as no. And a new question pops up below. Did your earnings vary over the last 52 weeks? Did you have some weeks that were higher and other weeks lower? Yes or no? I'm going to say yes here. And down below you can see another question popped up. Were your average gross weekly earnings before deductions in the last 52 weeks equal to or greater than $1,042? Yes or no? Let's, for this one, answer this one as no. I made less than $1,042. And the final question, would you like to now provide the details for each week of your highest earnings? Yes or no? So if you, as I said, if your earnings vary week to week and you want to show your top grossing weeks, I suggest that you fill out the variable best week form. So I'm going to answer this as yes, I can provide the details for each week of my highest earnings. And then I'm going to click on continue. So this is the next page, variable best weeks, where you will be asked to provide the details surrounding your top grossing weeks. Up here you can see there's a little help section that will definitely give you a hand in filling out this section. So keep that in mind. Click help for this page to get that drop down here. So you have the opportunity to provide Service Canada your top grossing weeks. As I said previously, they consider weeks starting from Sunday to Saturday. And here, just like what we've seen before, they have this handy calendar that you can use to enter in your top grossing weeks from the past year. You can go forwards and backwards using this feature with the calendar. So you have, as I said, 22 weeks, I believe, in total. Here you can see we have 21 more weeks after this one to enter in our top grossing weeks. That is essentially how Variable Best Weeks works. And you would simply click on Continue. I'm back at the very first page where we first saw the Variable Best Weeks information. And here's the other situation. Let's say you do qualify for this Variable Best Weeks where you can put in your top grossing weeks, how much you've made for those weeks. But let's say, let's have a look down below here to this question. Would you like to now provide the details for each week of your highest earnings? Let's say you don't have this information of your top grossing weeks. Let's say no. Down below here, you can see if you do not give this information now and would like to give it later, you can download and print the Variable Best Week form at the end of the application. So there is a form, a PDF form that you can print out. Let's say you're not able to provide this information and you just want to get your application in. You can mail in this information to Service Canada using this form that you can print out. It would have columns where you can enter in your Variable Best Weeks, and you could do it after the fact. Also, there is a section option. So Service Canada is going to get some information from your record of employment that will contain information of when your top grossing weeks are. So if you trust Service Canada to calculate the benefit rate for you, your top grossing weeks, this is a choice that you can make. It's well within your right to provide Service Canada your Variable Best Weeks on your own. But if you trust Service Canada to determine your benefit rate on your behalf, that is also an option as well. You can choose to not provide these top grossing weeks. Service Canada will do it for you as best as possible. But again, it's well within your right if you want to provide Service Canada with this information. So I'm going to say no, I can't provide that, and click on Continue. The next section is titled Workforce History. So as you'll see up top here, all of these following questions are asking during the last 2 years. So within the last 2 years, were you at any time in receipt of workers' compensation? Yes and no. You'll notice here that for all of these questions, there is the blue information button that will provide some more information for each of these questions if you're not quite sure what they're referring to, what Service Canada is asking. So this question, in receipt of workers' compensation, I'm going to say no. Unable to work for medical reasons, I'm going to say no. In receipt of wage loss insurance benefits, let's just say you don't know what wage loss insurance benefits are. If you click on the blue icon, you will get a definition here. I'm going to say no. Prevented from working due to a labor dispute, strike, or lockout, no. Within the last 2 years on a training course to which you were referred by a designated authority, no. And lastly, second to last, in jail, no. And lastly, in receipt of a payment from the Wage Earner Protection Program. Again, if you're not sure what Wage Earner Protection Program is referring to, here's a definition here. I'm going to select no and continue. The next question of the application form is asking, are you self-employed other than fishing or farming? So if you have some sort of side business or some sort of self-employed situation or job, you would indicate yes. I'm going to indicate no and click on continue. The next section is asking about farming and whether or not you declare farming income on your income tax return. If you do, you would indicate yes and follow along with the questions, and I will make a separate video entirely to the farming questionnaire that comes up if you do declare farming income. But if you don't, you would simply select no and click on continue. The next questions are about courses or training programs. So in order to collect EI benefits with regular benefits, you have to get approval if you are doing education or taking some courses, because with regular benefits, you have to be ready, willing, and capable of working. And if you are taking full-time courses, you are not able to be ready, willing, and able to work at any time. There are situations where you can get prior approval from Service Canada to do some training, but this has to be done in advance. So to answer this question, are you taking or will you be taking a course or training program? I'm going to answer this as no and click on continue. This question is asking, did someone assist you in completing this application? Normally the answer is no. If you did all of the typing and it was you that was making all of the decisions on your own, you would answer this as no. If you were not capable of and someone helped you type in the answers, that might be a situation where you would answer it as yes, and you would indicate that someone else was involved with assisting you in the application form. If you were doing this, if it was a library staff member helping a patron, you would answer this as no, because the library patron made all of the decisions on their own and they did all the typing. So sometimes people want to say, yes, this wonderful library staff member helped me, but it doesn't really work like that. They would want to know who this person was if there was anything wrong with your application form. So we're going to answer this as no. No one assisted me in completing this application. I made all the decisions and did all the typing on my own. The next few pages of the application form is just reading what your rights and responsibilities are. It's good to read through to see what is being asked of you in order to opt into the benefits through employment insurance. So I'm going to click on continue. Page 2 of 6 of rights and responsibilities. I'm going to click on continue. Page 3 of 6. I'm going to click on continue. Some more rights and responsibilities. I'm going to click on continue. Some more information. You're not able to leave Canada when you're on EI. You have to get permission, which may not be applicable right now, but we'll click on continue. And the final page, page 6 of 6 of rights and responsibilities. So on the next 2 pages, this page I'm going to accept my rights and responsibilities, and I would click on continue. And then there's one more page where you should read through, and if you accept, you would then click on submit, and that is the last page. So one page after this where you accept your rights and responsibilities and would like to submit your application form. And then what loads up is a page where it says that you have successfully applied for EI, and it gives you a code number that shows that you have done this application form. So it might be a good idea to print that off, just if you ever had to prove that you did in fact do the online application form, you would have that receipt to show that you have taken care of that. Also, if there are any additional documents on that very last page, it will have a link to any other forms that you might want to print out. So let's say for the variable best week questions, you said that you would submit that at a later day. It would likely have a link to where you could download the PDF of that variable best weeks form, or if you're applying for sickness benefit, there would be a medical form that you might have to get filled out by a doctor, things like that. So this is the steps that you would do in order to do the online application. And thank you very much for following along, and I hope this was helpful and useful. Thank you very much.